All right, so are you ready to dive into something you might not expect to be fascinating?
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
We're going to explore the story behind South Africa's national anthem.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot more than just a song.
I bet.
You see, it reflects a nation going through this really complex past
Yeah.
and trying to create a totally new identity.
Makes sense.
So, anthems can really act like a musical roadmap, showing how a country has changed over time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially in South Africa's case, right?
Yeah.
The journey from apartheid to democracy,
Exactly.
that's powerful stuff.
So we've got some excerpts here from a document about the history of the anthem.
Great.
And we're going to uncover how this unique anthem came to be,
Okay.
what it represents to people today.
I'm sure it's more complicated than people think.
Oh yeah, definitely twists and turns.
I'm ready.
Let's start with a moment that I think perfectly captures this.
Okay.
The 1995 Rugby World Cup.
Yes. The Springboks. South Africa's national rugby team learning all the words to Nkosi Sikelel's iAfrika.
Right.
Which, if you don't know, was a symbol of the anti-apartheid movement.
Right.
And they're doing this as like a gesture of unity.
Wow. Yeah, just 1 year after the end of apartheid.
Powerful moment.
Yeah, it must have been incredible to see that.
Truly was.
So to understand the weight of that moment, we need to go back in time.
Okay.
To the pre-1994 era,
Right.
when apartheid was still in place. Back then, the national anthem was Stem van Suid-Afrika.
The voice of South Africa in English.
Yeah, and this wasn't just any patriotic tune.
Nope, not at all.
It was like deeply connected to the whole ideology of the apartheid regime.
It was.
It's like, imagine being a black South African during that time,
Didn't
having to stand for this song
Oh.
that celebrated these events that were directly linked to their oppression.
It's difficult to even think about.
It must have been so hard
It
to
really-
reconcile with a past that's still so present.
Yeah.
Especially in a symbol that's supposed to represent the entire nation.
It was a complex situation for
Yeah.
sure. And then you had Nkosi Sikelel iAfrika emerging as the anthem of the anti-apartheid movement, which became a very powerful symbol of hope and resistance.
So you had these two anthems,
Yeah.
Stem representing the oppressor,
Exactly.
and Nkosi Sikelel iAfrika representing the oppressed.
A real musical clash of ideologies.
So what happened when apartheid finally ended? Did they just switch anthems?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what happened.
What did they do?
They kept both anthems.
What?
They had two.
Two national anthems.
Wow.
Stem, which was a super controversial decision,
Yeah.
and Nkosi Sikelel iAfrika.
Wow. So they kept the old one.
It was their attempt at reconciling,
Okay.
but definitely a bit awkward
I can imagine. Having to play two 5-minute anthems back to back.
at every national event.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, not very practical.
Yeah.
So in 1997,
They came up with a solution.
what was that?
A brand new anthem
Oh, wow.
that blended parts of both songs together
Wow.
with some new English lyrics.
It sounds like they were trying to take a fractured past and create some sense of unity.
It really does.
Was everyone happy with this new hybrid?
Not everyone.
Really?
The inclusion of the Afrikaans verse from Stem is still a point of contention for a lot of South Africans.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
For someone who lived through apartheid, hearing those words must bring back so much pain.
It's understandable.
Yeah, it must feel like a wound that hasn't fully healed.
It does for many people, and it brings up some tough questions.
Like, well,
Like, what does it really mean to reconcile with the past?
yeah.
How do you balance the desire for unity with the need to acknowledge the pain and suffering that happened?
It's clear this new anthem, while trying to bring people together,
Yeah.
also serves as a reminder of those deep wounds of the past.
It does, yeah. It really does bring up all those questions.
So how did they actually go about creating this hybrid anthem?
Yeah, it wasn't just mashing the two songs together.
Okay.
They made a lot of intentional changes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to both Stem and Nkosi Sikelel iAfrika.
Like what?
Well, like the lines in Stem, the
Yeah.
ones that specifically reference the Voortrekkers,
Right.
which were closely tied to displacing black South Africans.
Oh, wow.
Those were taken out.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they were really trying to make it more inclusive.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
What about Nkosi Sikelel iAfrika?
Oh, they made changes there too.
Really? Like a...
They removed the phrase Woza Moya,
Okay.
which has Christian connotations.
Right.
So by removing it,
Yeah.
they hoped the anthem would connect with people of all different faiths.
It's incredible how much thought went into every little detail.
It is.
It's like they were trying to honor the past while creating something new.
It was a balancing act for sure.
Yeah. And I guess that's why the debate continues today.
It is.
Because for some people, including any part of Stem at all,
Yeah.
feels like a betrayal.
Right, like a failure to fully acknowledge the pain.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and it makes you think,
Definitely.
can you ever really reconcile with a past that's still so present?
Especially when it's part of your national identity.
Exactly, and it makes you wonder about national anthems in general.
Yeah, like what's their purpose?
Are they supposed to gloss over the tough parts of history?
Right, or should they confront those parts head on?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I think ideally they should represent the complexities of a nation's history,
Oh, that makes sense.
acknowledging both the good and the bad.
Like what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Reconciliation is a journey,
It is.
not a destination.
Right, and this anthem, with all its contradictions,
Yeah.
tries to represent that.
It's a powerful symbol.
Yeah, of that ongoing journey.
Right. And it's a reminder that building a unified nation takes time, dialogue, and a willingness to engage with some pretty tough truths.
Absolutely.
So even though there's debate about Stem,
Right.
it sounds like there was a real effort
There was.
to create an anthem that could actually bring people together.
Yeah, a genuine effort.
And it was happening during a really specific time.
Yeah, the end of apartheid was a really delicate time.
Of course.
Nelson Mandela,
Yeah.
who had a big role in shaping the new anthem,
Right.
he understood the need to both acknowledge the past and create a vision for the future.
It's interesting you mentioned Mandela.
Yeah.
I read that he wanted the new anthem to be less than 1 minute and 48 seconds.
Yeah, that's right.
Why was that?
He wanted it to be about the same length as other anthems.
Oh.
He was thinking about the optics and all the practical stuff.
It's amazing he was thinking about all those details.
But he was.
It really shows how important this anthem was to
And it's
her.
the symbol of the new South Africa.
Yeah.
And that's why, despite all the debate, it's still so powerful for so many South Africans.
Yeah.
It represents a real turning point
Right.
and a commitment to moving forward.
And it's a reminder that building a nation takes constant reflection and dialogue.
And a willingness to listen to everyone.
Yeah, it makes think about national symbols like anthems and how they can shape a nation's identity,
Oh, absolutely.
but also how they can be so controversial.
They can be incredibly powerful things like
Yeah.
anthems, flags, monuments, you name it.
Right.
They all become what a nation stands for,
Right.
both for its own people and the world.
And in this case, with South Africa's anthem,
Yeah.
it represents both the pain of the past,
Right.
but also the hope for the future.
Yeah, it's like
It's asking, can a nation move on without forgetting what happened?
that's a question a lot of countries deal with,
I bet.
especially the ones that have gone through really tough times.
Yeah.
Like, how do you honor the victims without living in the past?
Right. How do you create unity while accepting that differences still exist?
That's the hard part. Yeah, those are some tough questions.
They are. And it seems like there are no easy answers.
Not really, but even asking those questions, having those hard conversations,
Yeah.
that's a step forward.
I think so too.
It's about understanding that history is messy
Yeah.
and that reconciliation isn't a one-time thing.
Right. It's an ongoing process.
Exactly.
And maybe that's what we can take away from this deep dive into South Africa's anthem.
I think so.
It's not just a song.
Nope.
It's a reflection of a nation's journey,
Yeah, all its struggles
triumphs.
and that quest for healing and coming together.
It reminds us that the stories behind these national symbols
Yeah.
are often way more complex than we realize.
Much more than meets the eye.
So the next time you hear South Africa's national anthem,
Okay.
or any anthem for that matter, take a second to really listen.
Yeah.
Think about the history behind it, the stories it tells,
Right.
and the conversations it starts.
Because in those stories and conversations, you can find the keys to understanding a nation's past, present, and maybe even its future.
That's a great point. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me. This was fascinating.